All right, in part 3 of emotional imprints, what they are, how to see them, today we're talking about how to dissolve them, how to get rid of emotional imprints. Why is this important to you? Well, we all run through patterns over and over again, and the idea here is to interrupt and remove these patterns so that our lives can be truly what we want and truly be like our creation, that we have some sort of semblance of control and as we trudge forward. So the first couple things you want to do, make sure you do have a pen and paper. Make sure that you have done your grounding exercises. If you need a reminder of what those are, you go back to that second video. You get the 5-point grounding system where you just find 5 things in your environment, identify them, and marking a characteristic about the item in question. And then last not least, we call it an emotional buffer zone, where you take your piece of paper and your pen and you just write down 2 sentences of pleasant or happy memories. If you need a prompt, hey, remember the time you ate some good food. Remember the time you were hanging out with your friends. What happened? Where were you? Who was involved? What time? Such as such. Once you have your grounding system in place, then let's start writing. Let's start getting into some of these emotional imprints. So from our last video, you wrote down a couple of emotional imprints that stand out to you in your week. Now, if you did that, awesome. If you didn't, go ahead and write down 3 columns: loops, reflexes, and body alarms. Again, go watch the second video if you need further explaining of what those are. And simply write down an entry in each one. So once you have your entry written down, whether it be a loop, a reflex, or a body alarm, and again, if you don't know what those are, go to the second video in the series and arm yourselves with some understanding. You're going to take one of those entries, whichever one feels relevant to you today. It could be the loudest, and I would say for a beginner, you pick one that's relevant but not the loudest. So we're not trying to overdo it. We are trying to do something that's manageable, and especially if you're dipping your toes in for the first time, I don't want you to try to bite off too big of a bite that you can't chew. Find whichever one of these loops, reflexes, or body alarms that feels relevant to you and manageable. And what we're going to do is we're going to find a place that we can relax and recline and just let our body be at rest. Now, this could be on the ground. I wouldn't recommend a savasana position, but I would recommend maybe like a beanbag, a chair, reclining in your office chair, you name it, pillow against the wall in your bed, somewhere you can just recline and let your body rest. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. So the process is simply this. When you have identified your loop or your reflex or your body alarm that you want to look at, when you're in this position of rest and recline, close your eyes and you're going to be asking yourself the following questions. Where have I felt this particular or distinct combination of emotions or sensations before? Generally, you will have an immediate memory that will come up. Take it. And we're going to move on to the next part. Now, before we go on to the next part, if you don't have a memory in the first couple of seconds, it can take up to 2 or so minutes, but that generally might be because there's some resistance or something else in front of you that needs to be addressed before. Do you feel any sort of resistance to feeling this emotion that you've circled down? And if so, we need to take a look at the resistance. Resistance will keep things locked into place. So if you have this barrier of resistance between you and whatever memory that would have come up, you're going to have to look at that resistance and let that go. So The real quick tip on that one is, if you feel resistance, just allow the resistance to present itself within your body, allow the resistance to be, and just hang out with it. And once you hang out with the resistance and just, accept it for what it is, acknowledge it, and allow it to process through your body. That can take, a couple minutes to, a little bit more. But whatever the case is, once you do find your memory, let's move on to our next process. Next process is simply this. Sit down with the memory and from start to finish, see the whole thing play out. See the whole memory from start to finish play out in your mind. And the idea here, I'm going to spoil the ending here a little bit, but the idea here is simply, we're taking the memory, we're experiencing the emotions in that memory, and we're allowing those emotions to present themselves, and we're allowing those emotions to dissolve, to let go, because those emotions, secret, that's what's keeping you attached to the painful moment, the shocking moment with you, and just keeping that pattern alive. So for the first 5 or so minutes, we're just going to be replaying that memory in our head from start to end. The next 10 or so minutes, what you're looking at, you're now looking at it not from a point of the person experiencing the event, but try to see the memory as someone who is observing it. And you have a notebook, and you can imagine these things if you really need to, if it helps you. But imagining yourself with a notebook or a pen or paper and asking questions about the memory. Asking, where did this emotion come from? Why did I feel this emotion? Or why did it or she or he feel that emotion in the memory? This is very helpful because we're trying to build a little bit more understanding when we come out of this. So you have 3 possible outcomes that can happen as a result of this practice. So let me just kind of set some expectations. 1, a more common outcome is this. You will experience or remember an earlier and similar memory that has that same emotional trait associated to it. If that happens, take that memory up. It means you're ready. If you can see it, it means you're ready to handle whatever needs to be handled. The second thing is you handle your memory and the emotions dissolve, and you can move on to the next part, which we'll get to here in a second. And last time, and this does happen, especially in the beginning, this last one is it can be a little overwhelming and you have to press the abort button. Don't worry, that is perfectly normal, and I'm not going to say expected. I hope you've done your sort of your grounding work to begin with, but it might happen even to the best of us. If that happens for you, just there's 2 ways to think about it. 1, to get through the pain, like to solve the pain and heal the pain, you have to get through the pain. Try your best to get through it, trying your best to see what you can see, what you're willing to see. This is all coming from a place of willingness. Is there any resistance between you and the memory? Meaning you see the memory, but something is being blocked because there's some resistance because you don't want to see it. And if you run across that, pause what you're doing with the memory and make sure you pick up and address the resistance that's presenting itself. It's important. I mean, it's blocking off an area that it's scared for you to see. It's afraid. And it's important to address those before going much further into your memory. If you've experienced this in mid-memory, and if it really is just too much, you bit off too much, you can chew, hit the abort. You have those grounding exercises I mentioned to you. Go on the channel. Here's a link up here on the right, and the grounding exercises we mentioned here in the video. Pick one, pick two, and ground yourself and recover those emotions. Depending on your outcome, hopefully it's better than not. And you've dissolved an emotion, which is the outcome we're aiming for. What we're going to be doing now is just taking our piece of paper. We're going to be writing down, hey, how does that memory feel on a scale of 0 to 10? What is the intensity of that memory now that I think about it, after I've come through the end of this tunnel here? And then if there's any sort of revelation you've had, or insight into the memory, maybe you're coming away with a new understanding. Maybe you're coming away with a new profound sense of freedom, or a new way to look at the memory that is healing and integrative for you. Write that down. It's important to record those wins. It's important to notate what has happened while you're doing this inner work. That's why I love journaling. It is incredibly, incredibly helpful for me to write down on paper and capture what I've seen and what I'm experiencing, and really tying it all together. Afterwards, simply do some, more grounding exercises. You can do either, 5-point grounding exercise. You could write down 1 or 2 more sentences of pleasant memories. These sort of take you up, take you a little bit higher than when you were going down into the memory. So once you've done that, you're done. This is it. This is a very simple practice. You don't need a therapist to help you. You don't need a guided practitioner. Anyone can do this, anyone at any time. I have, in my experience with this, I've been able to deploy this in the heat, in the moment where I've been triggered, or a memory or emotional imprint has been dusted up and stirred up and antagonized. Just last week, I was sitting at the table with my wife on Monday, and something stirred up within me. A mother wound, or a mother pattern from way, way back when I was a child. Something stirred up within me, and I just sat still, rested my head on my hands, and just took a look. I ran through the same process that I just shared with you here. Took a look at it, was able to dissolve it, and went back to living. And that's the idea, is the more and more you get used to this tool, and the more you get used to this process, you can rapidly deploy this so that when an emotional imprint is stirred up, you can address it immediately and get back to your life and get back to intentional creation. That's the power of this. And I will say, as a note or a warning, I wouldn't recommend doing this more than once or twice a week, especially in the beginning. Even me, I might do 5, 3 or 4 or 5 emotional imprints on the higher side a week. If whatever is relevant. Once you do emotional imprint and you've looked at it and you've reintegrated that bit of consciousness back into who you are, sometimes it just needs to settle out. So give yourself a little bit more time, and give yourself a little bit of grace, and give it a little bit of love, and just let it be, let yourself be, and pick it back up when you feel ready to do so. All right. So that's part 3 of the emotional imprint series. I do hope you'll stick around for some more, and I can't wait to tell you a lot more about this and many, many other such topics like this. Take care.